Prop your feet up, y'all. It's time for another Gamer James game review. There's got to be a better way to do that, y'all. OneShot. I gotta say, it's one of the most creative games of it. Okay, so OneShot. I gotta say, it is one of the most creative and innovative games I have seen, besides being an incredible story. But before I get into my official review here, first let's talk about, let's resolve some of the mysteries we were talking about. So to start off with, what exactly is taming? We kind of got an explanation of that, but like a lot of this game, it's open to interpretation. So from my point of view, and this could be completely different from yours, what it was referring to basically is obedience. The ability to have a choice to do the right thing or the wrong thing, and choose the right thing. I'll get into that later, but that's how I saw it. And there's the author. We didn't get to see him or talk to him at all, but apparently he's the guy who created the world machine. The guy who created that whole fake world we were in. And we met his son, but we didn't see him. Essentially, we got to read his book, shall we say. But I think that's all we get about him. So then there's who are Silver and Kip. Apparently, we had that explained, sort of explained from the very beginning. Silver is the robot lady who is the head engineer. Kip is Dr. Kip Silverpoint, the head scientist. And I probably could have figured out who Silver is because there's a letter to her in her house. So it was a little more obvious than I thought. But that would have been a lot easier to figure out if they said, they were kind of cryptic about who's who in this game. So that's partly on me, but it was very hard to figure out, I gotta say. Then, of course, the big burning question, who is the entity? Turns out it is the world machine that we were in and talking to. So I did not see that coming, but that, I believe, concludes all our solved mysteries. So now we got our unsolved mysteries. So we still don't know where that pile of hair and scissors came from. It's just some weird coincidence. Somebody felt like cutting their hair, and it worked out for us, and it worked out for Nico. And then, why does the head scientist, Dr. Silverpoint, look a lot like the head engineer? Nico even brought that up. Maybe just a coincidence. Maybe the head engineer is the human, and the head scientist is the robot that's made in her image, maybe. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Anyway, with all that settled, now it's time to get into the real meat of this. I am going to talk about what I thought about this, the sights, the sounds, and the feelings that it gave me. But what I really want to talk about right now is, of course, the metaphors that I saw. Now, there is every chance that I'm reading too much into this because I don't know. The developers of this game, Little Cat Feet, I have no idea what faith they belong to, whether they meant to put Christian theological metaphors into this or not, but I saw it there and I just couldn't ignore it. I just thought it was beautiful. But anyway, since a big part of this channel involves giving God glory, I do at least want to mention the metaphors that I saw, the biblical metaphors in this game, see what you think about them. So start off with the world machine. I think is a good symbol of the world at large. It says, in the game that says the spirit of the world. So it's like the world in one entity. The embodiment, if you can call it that, of the world. And like human beings, like every human being, it has conflicting code. It has part of it saying do this, part of this saying do the opposite. And because of the rules of robotics, it's told not to harm or even risk harming any living being, but at the same time, there has to be a living being that's Nico, that's in danger of being harmed in order for it to be saved. So it's not sure what to do. Also, it dealt with doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing, kind of like that song by One Republic, I feel so right doing the wrong thing, feel so wrong doing the right thing. And that, for anybody, will cause confusion when they realize that, like, why am I doing the things that I hate? There's a Bible verse about that. And why am I not doing the things I know I'm supposed to do? That brings me to my second metaphor, which is the author, who could be in some ways compared to God. There are some metaphors that don't work there, but he created the world machine for good. He created it for a good purpose, and it was working right at first, but then curiosity drew it toward doing the wrong thing, toward the corruption that started out. Very similar to the story of Adam and Eve. They just obeyed God and did what he told them. Then they were tempted to do the wrong thing, and they did it, and, well, you know the rest. And then, my favorite metaphor, the Messiah, Nico, came to save it. Now, so, you know, he could be compared to Jesus. There are a lot of differences between the two of them, but it was only because of him, and he was the only way that the world and the world machine could be saved. And I think that is just beautiful. He had sacrifices that had to be made, and he had to go through some things, go through some serious trials, and he was tested, and he went through some serious emotions, like Jesus himself did, and he was from another world, you could say, so much like Jesus. A whole lot of interesting comparisons to be made here, and again, it is a completely different story from the ones you hear in the Bible, but very comparable too, I think. Very, very similar. There's 1,000 other metaphors. One metaphor that I actually got wrong, I thought at the beginning, no pun intended there, I thought at the beginning the world machine was supposed to be like Satan, telling Nico to do the wrong thing, telling him just stay there, don't do anything, and it'll all be good, which was the opposite of the truth. Trying to deceive Nico from the very beginning and deceive us, the player, but it's actually, like we saw, more a comparison of the world. When it started showing feelings, I was like, okay, maybe that Satan metaphor isn't that great if it's, if it's redeemable and it's willing to do the right thing, if just barely, that makes it more like the world. And it's just dealing with the fact that it's messed up, and Nico was dealing with the fact that it's messed up, and both of them, Nico and the NZ, were wondering, can we actually fix this by now? Is it too far gone? Is it too messed up? It's something we all gotta ask ourselves. Can we, first you gotta realize that you're messed up, and you're not anywhere as near perfect or as good as you think you are. Then you gotta realize you need help. But you gotta ask yourself that question, can you be helped? So, and as the game shows, you can. And it's not easy, but it can be done, and it was worth it. It was worth it here, it's worth it in real life. Beautiful metaphors, and I absolutely loved everything that went into that, whether it was meant to be based on Christian theology or not. But it was a real treat for me, and for anybody, I think. Just to think about creation, purposes in life, choices that you have. Should I do this? Should I do what I can do just because I can, or should I do what I'm supposed to do and ignore the temptation to go outside the code, outside the protocol? It's mind-blowing, y'all. Mind-blowing. Anyway, on to the review proper now. To begin with, the sights. They were minimalist graphics, just pixels, not very detailed, certainly not, it was artistic, color-wise, and the atmosphere, the lighting was beautiful, but it was detailed, but it didn't look real because it was all pixelated. Still, for that, I think it was very cool, and it was cool how it kept changing from a drawing to pixels, especially, in those scenes with Nico. And then, speaking of characters, the characters were very expressive, even though you only saw like one picture at a time. They didn't need animation to look real, to look realistic. Now they didn't look like real people, but the feelings you could tell, especially in the more emotional ones where Nico cried, I was not prepared for that, and I was like, oh wow, this just got real, And if you can make characters look real like that and make them relatable like that, I think you did a good job. I think you did good. Look at me. Then there are the sounds, the music. The music was beautiful, very atmospheric, and it matched perfectly with the setting, the situations that were going on, and the surroundings that you were in. The abandoned barrens, and it's like a void, basically, almost nobody there. And then, more friendly tunes in the Glen, and the more, still kind of sad, but more industrious tunes you hear in the city. Ooh, and very touching, very memorable. Even during the cutscenes, the music was enjoyable, and it was bittersweet, but not so sad that it's like, okay, no more, please, no more, no more. On top of that, there were some pleasant sound effects. You might not care that much about that. You might think, well, they're sound effects. What's the big deal about that? Well, I'll tell you what's the big deal about that. Damn it. I'll tell you what the big deal is about that. The sound effects that you gotta hear over and over, like when you're switching through your items in your inventory, or just pressing buttons to make things happen. You gotta hear the same sound over and over. And I think they did a good job making that not annoying, not repetitive. And I loved how it had actual piano sound effects. And I was playing the song just by pushing buttons. That was a nice detail, I think. They made that as pleasant as music. Very good, look at it. And finally, there's the feelings they gave me. Oh boy. So if you saw the videos, you know this is mostly going to be on the positive side. So to start off with, the gameplay was incredibly creative. I don't know if there are any other games before this that made use of the mixed reality, messing with your computer, essentially. and letting that be part of the game, using stuff outside the game to play the game, that is just, makes you wonder, oh gosh, what's it gonna do next? And how's it gonna use my computer? What all can this game do? And how is it doing that? And there is an explanation. It's not actually alive or anything, but it's just mind-blowing that they can do that and do it in a safe way. It doesn't mess up your computer permanently, but it's intuitive, and takes a crazy mind to think of that kind of thing. So whoever did that, congratulations, and thank you for using your crazy ideas for good. Also, on that note, there is a unique kind of bond that was formed between the player and characters, and I absolutely love it when there are characters you can relate to, and you feel like not only you can relate to them, but you are them for a little while. And in this game, that was a little different because it establishes you as one of the characters that's not the main character. You're the god of the world. But I did establish, even still, a unique bond with Nico. I felt I was in his shoes, not in his place, but I was in his shoes, and I felt like I was as scared as he was, as scared as the entity was at the end. I was like, oh no, okay, things were going so well, and then cave-ins, and then more corruption, and then what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And that was that moment when Nico was holding on to the sun, like he was holding on for dear life. I felt that very same way. So I shared his emotions, and shared a lot of the emotions with the characters, especially the more positive ones, like, yeah, the sun's here, and oh, maybe there's hope, and so relatable characters, the kind you want to see good things happen to, and you want them to just hold on through the dark moments till they get to the light at the end of the tunnel, or the numerous lights, whatever the case may be. Also, there was a beautiful build-up of the mysteries, very similar to Professor Layton games where they save most of the mysteries until the very end. They don't tell you anything. You just gotta keep going and keep going and keep going. That's a great way to get people hooked on your game. Like, I gotta see it. I get like reading a book or watching a movie. You can't stop until you get to the end. I mean, technically you can, but it's just, no. I gotta stay on this. I gotta stay on it till I get to the end. Which, by the way, is why that last episode was so long. But it makes it all worth it in the end to see how it all wraps up and how it all works out for good. Because I imagined it wasn't going to have a happy ending of sorts one way or another, and it turns out it did. So, it was a long journey, and a lot of it's still kind of confusing, but I was happy to make it to the end, and I felt good. And of course, like I already said, of thought-provoking metaphors. Because, it takes talent to address certain topics like obedience as opposed to disobedience, and the consequences of obeying or not obeying, the concept of creator and creation, and of course what people do when their faith is being challenged, like the world is literally collapsing around them, stuff like that. To talk about that kind of thing, but not actually say, what would you do in this situation, but to actually show the situation and show metaphors through, machinery, computers, robots, and the cliche of if a robot could become self-aware, what would it do? And the concept of being tamed. Can humans be tamed? Can robots be tamed? Can cat people be tamed? And what are the consequences of acting the right way as opposed to acting the way you want to? Because a lot of the time, as you probably noticed, we all go through a situation where we gotta say, okay, I could do things the way people say to do them, or the way God says to do them, or I can do things my own way. And eventually you realize, most of the time you realize, when you try to do things your own way, you're like, oh, that was not a good idea. That was a bad idea. We still got a long way to go there as messed up, but good-hearted, I believe, human beings. But, it's definitely worth thinking about. No matter what your position on it might be, it's worth a thought. I'm glad this game is willing to do that thinking for us. Get us thinking. That being said, there were a couple things I could have done without. First of all, very slow progression, especially at the end. They just kept talking, and they had to explain everything that was going on, and I was glad to finally know what exactly is this world around us, and why is Nico here? That we didn't really know. He just kind of warped into it, Chronicles of Narnia style. He's from another world, suddenly he's here, he just wakes up because he's got a mission to fulfill, and that's like the only thing that doesn't make any sense. And it took a while to get to the end, and it was mostly dialogue, more dialogue at the end than actually doing stuff. And it started out having us use objects and other objects, and you'll figure out puzzles. And that part was fun. At the end, it's mostly just talking, and it's good. It's beautiful. It was dramatic, but it took way longer than I was hoping to. And I actually enjoy doing voices for people and putting my heart into it, adding as much drama as I can. But it does get tiresome after a while. So, you know, I would have enjoyed a little more interaction, a little less just watching what happens. Also, as you saw, there were parts where I had absolutely no idea what I was supposed to do, so very cryptic clues about what I was supposed to do. They were there, and there were some parts where I could have just figured it out if I just stuck with it a little longer. But if I feel like I got no choice but to consult a walkthrough or ask somebody who's played the game, hey, how do you get past this part? That makes it way too hard. That counts as unfair, and, you know, no, I don't want to be confused about what I'm supposed to do next, especially in a story game where I want to see what happens next, but I can't because I don't know how to do it. So that could have been explained a little better. It's a very minor gripe though, because most of it was just me being a dummy head. But you know, it could have been a lot easier than it was. Could have been a lot harder, but still took a while to figure things out, and I could have done with a short while better than a long while. That's all I'm saying. That's it, really, honestly. Also, one more thing I want to mention. Just how insanely creative this story is, because I've seen, you know, it's science fiction, obviously, computers, robots, and somebody from another world coming, another dimension, the multiverse as they call it. It's a pretty cool concept and mixture of concepts from that genre, but I don't think I've seen any other game or movie or book that uses this specific concept of a post-apocalyptic world where everything or most things were destroyed. It didn't say how it was destroyed. Maybe it was natural disasters, or maybe it was a war that ended the world as they knew it, but only a few people were there, only a few people were left over, and one of them created a replica of the world that they used to know, that's entirely simulated, but you can live there somehow, like the Matrix, and then had somebody from a completely different world, that's okay, as far as we could tell, come in and save that fake world. And because, not just because it's worth saving, but because the world is an actual entity that deserves to be saved, he thought, and can be saved, and he's just a kid. Yeah, that's not a good thing. A little kid taking on the role of a hero, and we get to see him basically grow up into a hero. That whole thing, to me, that's what he got out of it. That's what Nico got from this whole experience, besides seeing the world saved. He got to become a hero. Even if it was a fake world that was kind of disappointing for him. It's not even a real world, and I'm not even doing anything, but he gained some bravery, he gained some courage. So that was a beautiful story, I gotta say. That's just an additional thing I'm adding there, but very creative. So, taking all that together, the sights, the sounds, and the feelings that this game impressed upon me, and putting that over here on my quality scale, I would say this game is beautiful! I don't usually raise my voice that much when I'm describing a game, but that's what this game was. Overall, it was a beautiful game, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Hope y'all did too. Yeah, it was kind of long, but not too long, not too short. I think it was just the right balance of interacting with the story and just watching the story and seeing what all the characters did, what happened to them, how they interacted, and what was going to happen. As far as story-based games go, I think this one is a winner, and I recommend trying it out for yourself if you want to. It's I got a link in the description, and it is a beautiful game, both to watch and to play. Of course, now that I've said that, I'm about ready to jump into something new now. This game wore me out, y'all. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on OneShot. Thank y'all so much for listening. Feel free to share any thoughts you have down in the comments below. Let me just say, thank you, God, for this game. Thank you, Little Cat Feet, for making this game. And thank you all for watching this game. Until next time, adios, amigos. God bless, and I will see you around. What's this thing made of, anyway? Plastic, I think. I don't know.